Okay, so I just wanted to start today's episode by noting last week we said we thought episode 4 it had a slight dip, but it would be worth it if it paid off in episode 5. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but you can probably tell by my expression, it paid off. For me, it paid off. I don't know about you.
Hey, mate, it paid off for me too.
Wow.
We continue our streak of being aligned on our opinions. It was incredible.
It was a good episode, man. And it's made... I'd be interested to watch episode 4 again. I think it made it more worth it. And I'm sure there's going to be some like nuanced moments maybe in episode 4 that now work better because of episode 5. So, after a resistance movement overthrows the Federate government and takes control of Kansas City, their leader, Kathleen, sets out to find the government informants, including Henry, who she blames for the death of her brother, Michael. Henry and his brother Sam hide out in a secret bunker with the doctor from the previous episode. 10 days later, though, the doctor is missing and they're lacking food. So, the brothers track down Joel and Ellie, who Henry believes can help them escape the city. After a brief confusion over Joel's instinctively threatening tone of voice, which Ellie assures them is just how he talks, they lower their weapons. The group share some food, taking time to introduce themselves before Henry explains that he can help Joel find a way out of the city. So, it was an interesting start. Again, no cold open, but that's fine.
Yeah, I know, continuing that trend.
Yeah. But we start... I was actually a bit unsure at the beginning whether this was after the events of episode 4 or before the events. And it kind of soon became clear. But at the very beginning when they were killing all those Fedra people and you know, tearing them apart, shooting them, stabbing them, whatever it was, I was a bit unsure. But then when we jumped to Henry and Sam with that doctor hiding in that loft, then it kind of became clear. But what did you make of the opening of this ep?
I was glad that we weren't picking up the story as these two young raider kids, because I thought that what we were going to do was just going to have these like two outlaw kids that had no real backstory ending up teaming up with Joel and Ellie. So the fact that we were immersed into their story in such a way, and that you have the added layer of the fact that one of them is deaf. I don't know if you knew they were brothers right away. You find out, like, he makes it clear later. Maybe you can assume. But there was an added element there that made me think, okay, whatever that cliffhanger was that they left us on last week is now not so underwhelming, because it's not just a simple, oh, it's a stick up. It's more, these are going to be potential great allies.
Yeah, they really fleshed them out in this episode. I don't know, all of it just kind of paid off.
Yeah, it did. And I've got to admit, again, just like I said last week or the week before, it's really hard for me in the first half of this episode anyway to grasp who these groups were, because what was tricky was, even though they were establishing Henry and Sam very well, it was hard for me to understand what they were rebelling against, because I didn't understand who Kathleen and her group were. I didn't understand that they were, in fact, a resistance to Fedra, because I didn't understand that Fedra were a government agent, I guess.
I think it's
the voice of the government.
Yeah, it's like federal environmental disaster, something like that. It's like a... You
know it
No,
all, don't pretend.
Because they did show it a little bit in a shot, I think, like the logo, but I can't remember exactly. But yeah, it's something like that. It is a government agency, I guess, that kind of took over after everything fell apart.
But it kind of worked, even though I was still struggling to work out who was who exactly. It was enough in the first half of the episode anyway to just know where the line was drawn between one group and another at that point.
Yeah, well, I think that's an interesting theme, and I touched on this a little bit last week, but they're establishing a lot throughout the whole season. Is there really a true good side or bad side, and is it just a grey area? Because Fedra, to these resistance guys, Fedra were the aggressors, and they overthrow them. They kill them all, and then they're basically... We don't know what Frederick did, but Henry does mention later... I can't remember exactly what he says, but he mentions what it was like living in Kansas under Federal rule. So we can assume that it was bad, but then when we see what this resistance are doing, they are painted out like the bad guys. But it's like, what's the good side here? I think it's just that grey area in this world where society is completely gone and the world has just collapsed. Is there a good side? Which I think is an interesting theme, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be fleshed out over the whole season, but we'll see.
Yeah, you are right. There is definitely... This is what makes it so much...
It's not easy, is it?
It ain't easy. It's not easy to pigeonhole people, and it is more reflective of real life because there are layers. There isn't just fucking good and bad in life. Even the people that you think are the decent ones, even the great leaders of the world, do terrible things.
And I guess it's a good, you saying like they feel real and layered. You could probably understand where Kathleen is coming from. Someone gave up her brother and killed him. You can understand her motivation. You can understand why she's acting this way.
Yeah, totally, man.
It's not simple.
The duality of the situation is what's great about it, because they both are acting or acted the way they did in order to protect their brother and protect their family. And not only their brother or their family, the one person, you can assume, for Kathleen as well, that they have in life, that means the world to them. And it's like, if that person is taken from you, how are you going to react? Will you, like we've seen in episode 3, does your life end? And, well, getting ahead of ourselves, but in this episode as well, or do you just completely transform into something else, change who you are? And I kind of feel like we're seeing all of these versions, like what Bill did, what Henry did, what Kathleen did, because we're still waiting to find out what Joel's going to do with this one person that he's now got. We know that he carried on after Sarah, but now that he's got that one person, what's he going to do?
What's going to happen, man? We're going to have to see. We're going to have to see.
We're going to have to see.
I just briefly, we'll move on, but I thought it was really funny when Henry says, "Why does he sound like that? You don't sound like you're..." and Ellie's like, "Oh, that's his arsehole voice," or something. I just thought that was really funny. Because I think Joel definitely is probably thinking, once this gun's out my face, how am I going to take these guys down?
How am I going to take these guys down, yeah. It was also, I think Pedro Pascal played that very well, because there was a hint of humour in the whole response to having that gun in his face, answering questions at gunpoint, and the way that he was reacting in the opening 5 minutes with them was very much like cantankerous, begrudgingly. Not only did I have one kid before, now I'm lumped in with 2 other kids. I hate this. He was like the Pied Piper of Hamelin with those kids. Yeah, it's great.
It was good, and I'm glad it wasn't just. Because I feel like as an audience, I don't know about you, but I obviously knew that Henry and Sam were allies. I like that it wasn't just, oh, okay, well, we're going to be friends then. There was a slight exchange and a dance, I guess, of trying to calm things down.
And I also love that the balls on Henry, that he and his little brother pulled that off with... empty guns, no ammo.
That's it.
They just did it all with the threat of a gun.
That's it. Needs must, man. You got to do what you can. Let's move on briefly. So the group make it into the maintenance tunnels, where they find no sign of any infected. However, they come across an unusual sight: the nursery room of an old survivor's bunker filled with books and toys. Henry reveals when Sam had leukemia, the only drug that could treat it was in the hands of Fedra, and Henry had to give Fedra something big in exchange. That turned out to be Michael, Kathleen's brother, and then leader of the resistance. So that's just a brief bit. We'll stop there before we get ahead. I thought this was, well, firstly, it was funny when they go down into the bunker or the tunnels. Joel says to get Ellie to get her gun out, and she pulls it out of her pocket, and Joel gives her that look, because earlier in the previous episode he said put it in your bag.
Put it in your bag, that's right. So you pointed that out in the last episode, that she just tucked it into her waistband.
Yeah, we said, oh, is that going to pay off? And it's funny that it paid off as like a little joke rather than a big plot point. But that was good. I really liked this bit. Were you expecting there to be infected down there?
Yes, because I thought that I was connecting it to the swelling that we saw in the previous episode, and I thought, right, well, that's underground, so there's got to be infected down there. But then we didn't get them.
It's a little bit of a subversion, isn't it, I guess, which was nice.
Very good subversion, actually.
So interestingly, I don't want to talk about the game too much, but this bunker, it's got a bit of like a cult following, because it's one of these great examples of like environmental storytelling. I don't know if you noticed, but there's a brief shot of the poster that's one of the kids had drawn, and it says, I think, Ish and Danny.
I didn't notice that.
No, I don't think, like, it's not a big deal, but basically in the game you go down and you find it's exactly the same, like an underground bunker where people have been living, but they're gone. And you find all these notes from this guy called Ish. You slowly piece together what happened, but you never explicitly know because they're just gone. But you can kind of piece together what was going on down here and the world these people lived in, but it's only through these little notes you find. So it's got, like, people who love the game tend to love Ish and this downstairs bit. So I'm really glad they paid sort of like homage to it. They didn't delve into it. I did wonder.
Nice bit of fan service.
Exactly. I wondered if we might meet Ish in the game, in the show, but it was good.
You still might, eh? Because there's no saying that whoever that person is dead.
That's true.
This whole bit, though, you said you didn't want to talk about the game, but it's clear to me from watching it. I can imagine in the game you spend hours or quite a while down in those tunnels.
It's like a chapter, yeah. So that's like a whole chapter. And that's the thing, all these notes go through. So I think you start on the beach, you go through these tunnels, like a sewer tunnel or something. You then find this place where these people lived. And I think you had seen bloaters earlier, like the big infected people. But I think you obviously come across infected down there and you end up having to escape. But I wanted to talk, you mentioned about Sam being deaf. And so Sam isn't deaf in the game. And I was thinking about what potentially like the reason they made him deaf here was. And I think what I actually quite liked was that it wasn't any sort of big plot point to Sam being deaf. It's not like there was a moment where a clicker was coming and he couldn't hear them and they were using it to build tension. I think it was simply just like, these people exist in this world. That's all it is. And I really appreciated it. And I was trying to dissect the reason. And I think it's just, that was it. He's just deaf.
You got it. Exactly. And you know what? More power to that. Let's have some representation for where it isn't because of.
Yeah, it's not a gimmick.
This is why. And you're right. It would have been so easy for them to have created any set piece in this and played off the fact that he couldn't hear the threat coming and the fact they didn't speaks volumes. I think it does also work dramatically in the show that he is clearly so reliant on his older brother because of that, though. Whereas I guess in the game, because the drama of the game comes more from what you're doing when you're controlling one of the characters as a protagonist, if you just had him as a young kid who could hear in this, it would just be, okay, you've got two kids and you've got two grown-ups that are looking after them, rather than this added dynamic of what's going to happen to him without his brother if anything happens to Henry. But yeah, representation, man.
I did think though it made for some nice moments between Ellie and Sam. Like it was quite cute when he was teaching her sign language and they were writing each other the notes later on, even though that was a bit morbid at the end of the episode.
I love the whole thing of him having this thing around his neck. Like, this is me being too literal sometimes, but I was like, I love that he has it. It's a good narrative device to have him write things and rip that and clear it. But it's like, he would find one of them in a post-apocalyptic world like that. You telling me he's had that one for however long he's been deaf? No. He has lost that, and there is no way he's finding another one. So they've kept that narrative device, that plot device, consistent throughout. To be like, we're not even going to admit that he would clearly lose this at some point.
Well,
it's going to be this.
To be fair though, if that's the only way he could communicate now, it's like that would be your most prized possession. You know,
I suppose. Yeah,
you wouldn't want to lose it.
Think about like just what happens if you wear a t-shirt too much. It's getting ripped and scratched. And
that's true.
That thing's just hanging by a thread.
There was a kind of a brief moment. There was that nice exchange between Joel and Henry, where Henry says, like, I'm the bad guy. Joel and Tess previously say, you know, we're not good people, we're bad people. Joel said, when asked about the ambush, he says, I've been on both sides. We've got Henry here, I'm the bad guy. It's like, it's really being laced in through a lot of the episodes, and I think that theme is going to continue,
hopefully.
Yes.
What did you think about Joel's reaction when he said, I'm the bad guy, after he tells him the story and he's like, maybe I'm the bad guy? How did you feel Joel actually responded to that?
Well, initially when he says, oh, so you're a rat, I was like, oh no, be nice, Joel.
Don't be a dick.
It's like, Jesus Christ, make some friends, mate.
Yeah.
But no, I thought that was fair, and it seemed like a response he would have. Although you'd think I always got the impression that he wouldn't really care. He'd be a bit like more understanding maybe, but I don't know. But I think it's good that later on, maybe once things have calmed down, he then opens up and he apologizes and he says, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I know what it's like, you know, when you've got a kid or you've got someone to fend for. So yeah, I thought that was nice to have it like both sides, that initial reaction and then the sort of more measured response.
Even if he wanted to be judgmental and take a moral high ground, he knows that because of the situation that him and Tess have been through, that they've had to compromise on their morals. Whatever moral standing they had before, you have to compromise in order to survive in that world. So he ain't going to judge that guy.
Yeah, exactly. So after they leave the tunnels, a sniper attacks the group. Joel sneaks up and kills him, but finds out he worked with Kathleen, who shortly arrives with her militia. As Kathleen prepares to kill Henry, though, a truck falls underground, releasing a massive crowd of infected. It was massive as well.
It was.
Including a heavily mutated host known as a bloater. Urging Kathleen to reach safety, Perry is killed by the bloater. Ripped apart, I think, is more apt.
Yes.
And then Joel uses the sniper rifle to protect Ellie, who helps Henry and Sam escape. As they do, Kathleen confronts them, but a child clicker promptly kills her. So,
man,
this was the moment, right? This is where it paid off. I audibly gasped and wowed and laughed. It was just thrilling. I loved it so much.
It was amazing.
Did you think that they had made it out, Joel, Ellie, Henry and Sam? Did you think that was it? The coast was clear, or were you expecting?
The minute that they were just walking down that street and Joel's like, be quiet, and I can't remember who it was, if it was Ellie or Henry, was like, there's no one around and shining lights or something. I'm like, this is not going to end well.
Yeah.
But brother, everything you just recapped there, from the minute they get out of that tunnel to the child taking it, that was... The show has never been as good as that.
No, captivating.
That includes season 3. It was just so amazing.
Yeah.
Like, the drama of all of it, from the sniper through to those things coming out of the floor, and then the bloater, as you say, coming out. I've never seen the bloater before.
No.
And that's the reveal of what is called a bloater. That's like horrendous, man. That was amazing
I'm glad they waited, because the bloater is one of the I guess enemy types or infected types in the game, and it gets introduced when you meet Bill, so quite early in the game.
Okay.
And so they obviously made a conscious decision to not include it there and bring it in a bit later.
It would have tonally been very awkward to fit it into that Bill storyline. Can you imagine?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know where it would fit in.
Just Bill and Frank shooting a bloater. But no, I thought it was a good choice, because you don't want to play all your cards at once. And in a game, you want to meet your enemies and you want to go through, you mow down tons. But in a show, you want the bloater to be a bit more of a reveal and have more impact. So it was great that they did it here. It was captivating. The moment that sniper does the first shot, you're on the edge of your seat. And it's funny because that in episode 2 where you get the clickers and it was really tense, that was brilliant. But this was chaotic. And you just couldn't breathe. You
know what was great about just the sniper scene was when he got into the room, when Joel got into the room with that guy, and he was like, please don't. Joel did not, despite being shot at, he did not want to kill that man. He just like, I don't want to kill people. I'm only doing it if I have to. And as an audience member, I don't know about you, but I'm like, just don't. Drop the gun, kick it over.
Genuinely, that was a beautiful moment. Such a small bit, but one of my favourite bits of the episode, because you're right. There's so much context there. You look at that guy and the look he has, and Joel saying, "Please don't do it, please don't do it." And that old guy he doesn't say a word, but he's thinking, "I've lived too long. I'm done. I'm done."
I know.
And Joel knows it. The old guy knows it. And I like that they cut away. You don't actually see him shoot him or something. It was a beautiful that was really incredible, that bit. I'm glad you brought it up.
Just to say one other thing on this, like I said, I had given up on the game by this point. But Jenny, my wife, had carried on playing. I remember seeing her play this sniper bit scene, and it took her ages. I remember watching what it felt like, maybe an hour and a half, dancing around the cars. From memory, there were lots of cars in the lead up, and from memory again, the sniper thing looked pretty accurate to the game, where you had that huge bell tower and you just saw that flashing light every now and then.
It is.
So that was a bit of a thrill for me to suddenly be like, oh shit, I remember that from the game. That was nice.
That was a nice moment, because we've spoken about video game bullshit before in the series, but this was a moment where a video game scene, if you want to call it, from the game translates so well to TV, because having Joel up there unable to help Ellie just makes the tension so palpable, because you almost want to get down there and save Ellie, and all these clickers are around. We're jumping all over the place, but there's that moment where Joel shoots the old guy and he hears the radio and he knows that Kathleen's coming, and you cut back to Ellie, Henry and Sam, and you just hear run, but it's like slightly muted, but you know what it is, and they're kind of going, it's run, and it cuts back to Joel, run, get out of there, go.
Mate, I was sure one of them was gonna be killed in that scenario. From even just when they were running at first, I'm like, well, these three kids are not getting away from this bunch.
Ellie shooting back at the car was so
was great.
Sweet.
I loved it, the naivety. But I was like, maybe she would have got someone. I hope she got someone at least, clipped someone slightly.
But it shows she's a fighter, and she's she's being strong, even though she's a kid and there's a bloody car about to mow her down. She's like fighting.
I know, man.
She's a fighter,
and I continue to root for her with every episode that goes on, because of not just because of that, but because of those moments, like you said earlier with Sam. I never had any commitment to the Ellie from the video game anyway, but this is now like, this is my Ellie, this is who Ellie is for me in The Last of Us, and I don't want nothing bad to happen to her, man.
She that's the thing, and she's such a sweet person. She has this, she's really friendly with Sam, who's obviously younger than her, And later on, where she's trying to console him and stuff like that, you can't help but root for her.
She's a very real personality as well.
Yeah.
She's sweet, but she's got this funny edge to her. She loves poking at Joel.
Yeah.
She knows that it winds him up, and it's not like, oh, I won't do that then. It's like, I'm gonna do that. That's how I get on with this guy.
Oh, it's wonderful, isn't it?
It is.
Let's just talk about the moment all of those clickers come out the ground, because this is obviously the reveal of what was that pulsating floor in the previous episode. And I had assumed, you asked me if I knew, and I thought this is a bloater, but I didn't realise. We did actually say, I think maybe it's a hive or a nest, which is what it was. But wow, this is again, I mentioned earlier, episode 2, you see the clickers, it's just 2 of them. Here you see the full force, and you fully understand why the world fell apart, why this destroyed the world, because it was terrifying.
What a set piece as well, just the execution of it, and the added element of having, it was mad enough with the frenzied attack of all of them coming out of the floor, but then the fact that they slow-mode, like the balls on any show that can slow-mo and it not be cliche is excellent. When they slow-mode the bloater coming out, like, when I saw that, I was like, I don't know what this is, but this is bad. This is bad news, man. And he just came stomping out. I'm like, the creature design on that thing's incredible.
Yeah.
I don't know, is that how it looks in the game?
It is.
I feel like they magnified it. Okay.
It's pretty much the same. I mean, they call it a bloater. I guess it's one that's been alive for so long, because Joel mentions they can live up for up to 20 years, and I saw someone mention on Twitter that they'd all been led underground for like the last 15 years. So some of these clickers down there are infected. They've been growing and growing and growing, so that's why they become this bloater.
Why they're swelling up like that. Incredible
and
visual and terrifying.
Rips the guy's head off. I really enjoyed, because the Perry guy, he's like a old school classic sort of like action film secondary baddie, and he doesn't get much character development, but he gets the beauty of a great death. And I thought it was
he does get that.
I loved it. I really loved it. And he was a good.
Yeah,
he was slightly like he was a loyal servant. He told Kathleen to run. He protected her. But it was wonderful.
He was just a word for him then, since he died. A word in his honour. Yeah, you're right. He was a loyal servant to Kathleen, because I think he was actually probably quite a decent guy, because often when she was making decisions, you could see that he was like, I don't agree with that, including earlier on in that episode where she was like, they're not going to trial, there's no jury. Okay, he says to her, they're not going to jury, are they? And she's like, no, just burn the bodies when you're done with it. And he's like, and then does it.
Yeah, he does seem like a good guy, and that's the thing, again, he's on this side. He seems like he might be a good guy, who knows.
He got what he deserved.
He did. It was a great death. And then, so the irony, Kathleen she's talking to Henry to come out from behind the car, and she's I think I can't remember what it is, but she says like, he's just a kid, about Sam's disease or illness. He's just a kid, children die all the time. She goes on and on about it, and in the end she gets killed by the child clicker.
The child. That's a great bit of karma.
Exactly.
You're right,
it was lovely. I liked that.
And that child, because that was, am I right in saying that is the same child that followed Ellie into the car?
Yes, yeah.
And the beauty of that was when Joel was trying to protect Ellie, it seemed to me, I don't know, maybe this wasn't the case, but it seemed to me like he was intentionally fucking up. Not intentionally missing, but he was unable to get off a crack shot because it was a child. And even in that state, he didn't want to kill what I think was a little girl.
Maybe, yeah. I didn't think about that, but you could be right. Yeah, some sort of.
He seemed to be missing a fair bit when that little girl was chasing her around the car. So I was like, is he torn? Is it? He can still see the humanity.
Yeah, I was thinking, because you're right, and I was thinking it's a bloody good job Joel is a good shot, because some of these shots he's doing are right next to Ellie, and I'm like,
that was a very big video game maneuver to be like, suddenly I know how to use a sniper rifle.
Yeah,
I could take like everyone.
One small like error and he's just blowing Ellie's head off, and it's like, oh fuck.
There was a moment where I thought he'd shot her. It was when all of them were sort of bunched up against that car, when she was with Sam and Henry, and they were all like in that under a car or under something, and he took a shot off, and I swear Ellie spun, because I think the clicker or whatever it was right on her at the time, so it caused her to spin as well. I was like, fuck, what's he done?
Yeah,
all of this was just pinnacle storytelling, because it was like, it wasn't just, oh, here's this great spectacle. It was, look at the fucking stakes on offer here, because
Exactly.
not only have you got these three characters, you've got Ellie, who you've known for a long time, you've got these two brothers who you've only just met in this episode that we're asking you to care about. We've got Joel up there, who maybe he's going to be compromised up there, but he's our only hope. And also, you've got these, like her or not, you've got Kathleen, who is a main character in the show at this point, or so it felt to me. We've just been introduced to another main character. So there's all these big players in this really risky situation. Anyone could go at any point. Thrilling
Yeah,
stuff.
no, you're so right. I mean, it's classic setup and payoff. We said last week it was a little bit slower, but it would be worth it if it paid off. And I assumed that Kathleen and co wouldn't be in many more episodes, so I was hoping
this was coming,
I knew
right?
I assumed it was only going to be like 1 or 2 more episodes, but it paid off so well. And you're right, they set everything up so well and just fucking fired off on all cylinders at the end. But we should move on, because there's still a little bit more to come. So later in a motel, while in private, Sam shows Ellie an infected bit him during the attack. Admitting her immunity, Ellie tries to use her blood to heal Sam. She promises to stay up with him through the night, but inadvertently falls asleep. The next morning, Sam, now infected, attacks Ellie. Henry hesitates but shoots Sam in the head. In shock and despair, he then kills himself. Joel and Ellie bury them. Ellie apologises to Sam, and they continue their journey west. So, my question for you is, did you see this coming?
Not for a second. Not for a second.
Did you think Henry and Sam were going to Wyoming with Joel and Ellie? Like, did you think they were going to continue on the journey?
I thought that Henry might end up not going on the journey, but I didn't think in this episode one of them was going to go. Much less both of them, in the most devastating way.
Oh gosh, it's horrible, isn't it? And it's funny because I know this is coming, obviously, so I know the episode isn't over, but you could be forgiven for thinking once they escape all those clickers, it's like, okay, now it's the quiet resolution and we'll finish this episode and move on. But like, no, we had a big horrible moment still to come.
The drama of it, man. It was emotional. Like the Bill episode, this is where I had tears in my eyes at the end. Because of what was happening.
I thought
I couldn't believe it.
The performances in this scene, well, actually, I mean, both of them. But when Henry shoots Sam, the performances across the board were just phenomenal. Even you've got Henry in shock, despair about what he's just done.
Brilliant.
Ellie is like almost traumatized by what's just happened as well. And when Henry shoots himself, she lets out this horrible scream, which just and then like cries. That just like impacted me right in the soul. Yeah. And then you've got Joel, who's caught in the middle, and there was a lovely moment as soon as Henry shoots Sam off of her. Joel asks Ellie if she's okay, and it's that paternal feeling coming out again. He's in a moment of shock and panic. It comes out. He's not able to control it. Which I thought was interesting, but all of them just phenomenal performances, I thought.
Just devastating as well. The fact that they revealed the fact that he'd been bitten in such a non-bombastic way, not like a great reveal.
Yeah,
like
very
in this small,
unceremonious,
intimate moment. Yeah, just him and Ellie over a comic book in the bedroom. And it's like the great writing to set it up by him before that reveal by saying, "Are you still you?" Are you still? What does he say? It's like if you're still you, if you're inside a monster or something like that. Like even at his age, understanding the gravity of what was about to happen, he was under no delusions about what was about to happen to him. Horrible thing. I wanted that kid to survive, man. Earlier on in the episode, I was like, "Oh, he's so sweet. I don't want nothing bad to happen to him."
He was too sweet. He couldn't survive in this world, man. He was too sweet.
He was too beautiful for this world.
Yeah, it was very nice of Ellie. I didn't think for a second it was going to work, but to cut herself and try and use the blood to heal him and
it's a very sweat, childish thing to attempt. Like in that situation, I guess if you don't know, if you're like, I've been bitten and survive.
Yeah. It's interesting that she doesn't tell Joel. I think it is perhaps her naivete coming out and thinking maybe she can help fix the situation. But then I mean, she promises she's going to stay up, and she breaks that promise, which I think is why she puts, that I'm sorry down later. That's heartbreaking for her to have broken her promise to this poor kid. But the morning comes, he runs out, attacks her. I thought, when I watched it first, it all happened very quickly, and I thought they could have done it a little bit slower. But then I watched it again, and I thought, no, it was actually perfect. Because my only thought was, Henry shoots Sam very quickly. But I think Henry just knows what's up. I think he knows the deal.
Yeah, that's interesting because I thought, I don't know, maybe I'm too conditioned, having seen a bunch of zombie things in the past, to think that people are absolutely ruthless when it comes to that moment where they have a sudden, like a blink of like, oh no, I can't believe it, but they do it. I love the fact that when, even though you're right, it was very quick, it was chaotic, it was a rush. I love the fact that when Henry saw what was happening, his first instinct was to point the gun at Joel.
Yeah, that's true.
To be like, don't you fucking touch him. That's my brother.
Oh, it was brutal. It was horrible. And then once he shoots him, I can't remember the line he says. He says, "What have I done? What have I done?" And his performance incredible. I think it was brilliant framing and the way the shot was all set up. But it's kind of that close up on Henry. I keep getting their names mixed up. That close up on Henry, and you just see the gun come in, and then cut away to Ellie, bang, and it's over.
I hated it, but I knew he was going to do that. Like after he killed his brother, I knew in that moment he's not going to. This was his reason for living. Like,
exactly.
Look what he did to save his brother's life. He's not going to continue now. Horrible that it happened, but I'm glad that he was the one to kill his brother in that state. It shouldn't have been Joel or Ellie to do it. It had to be him. It's like a Of Mice and Men type scenario where someone who's like a liability at that point, a danger to themselves and other people, has to be put out by the person that loves them most. Very emotional.
Yeah, and you're right. It's that moment of once you've lost what you're living for. And again, Henry did things he's not proud of, that he was struggling with. He gave up the leader of the resistance. Someone died because of him, because of what he did for his brother. And once his brother's gone, it's like, oh, I can't do this anymore. And he goes.
Man.
And it's, again, a theme that keeps coming up, the person you're living for and what it does to you. So, again, Bill and Frank, Kathleen, her brother here.
It's such an emotive topic because I think everyone can relate to it. Everyone knows that ultimately in a modern world with all the communities and stuff that we have, at the end of the day, we need people that we love and like around us. We need our friends, we need our family, we need our loved ones. If you're in a world where you have nothing but that, you can only be living for them. And they're already in such a small number. When they go, you've got two choices. You go out, as Bill and Henry did, because you don't want life without them, or you commit yourself to the preservation of humanity, and that's what your life purpose becomes, which I think in a way is what's so interesting for me anyway at this stage about Joel, is he's caught in a halfway house between being haunted by the death of his daughter. Clearly he's almost walking through life like a ghost, but at the same time, everything he's doing, everything we're seeing so far is for the preservation of humanity, whether that's because Tess told him it needed to be done or because he knows instinctively something needs to be done to help people, help children, help Ellie. He's in this halfway house, and that's a fascinating dynamic to look at.
It is, man. I don't know where we're going to go from here, you know.
Oh, right.
I remember very clearly up to this point. I can't quite remember what happens next, but I'm sure we're going to find out. One interesting note I had, the same director I think worked on 4 and 5, which makes a lot of sense because it does feel like its own self-contained story. Which makes sense. And again, we spoke about it before, but it's so far this whole show has been all these instances of people Joel and Ellie have met along the way, and it's Bill and Frank, Tess, Henry and Sam. I feel like that's probably going to continue. I can't actually remember who else is left. But
do you know what has been a weird thing though? It's like, did you ever watch Game of Thrones?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so one of the big things in Game of Thrones was that you got to know and love these characters, or
and then
they were big characters and then suddenly killed off.
Yeah.
In this, it's almost like it snuck up on me, the realization that everyone that we are introduced to in the show, bar Joel and Ellie, so far anyway, is going to die.
It's a savage world, man.
An episode or two. Oh, mate.
Yeah.
And that's ballsy as well, because you've got some great performances, some great actors that are coming into these roles. Yeah. Just for like an episode or two, and then they're gone.
You're right. You're right, because some of these actors they're getting in, good actors and in-demand actors, and I think a lesser show or a lesser writer would make Henry and Sam a main character. We'd see Henry and Sam in episode 1, and we get up to this point maybe, but it's like, no, we're just going to introduce you, and we're going to make you care about them, we're going to show their humanity, and then we're going to take them away.
And there's the skill in one episode. I didn't know who Henry and Sam were at the beginning of that episode. Tears in my eyes by the end for what happens. Same as the Bill and Frank storyline. And
for what it's worth, I was a lot more emotionally involved with Kathleen's sort of arc here as well. I think she was still like the typical TV villain in a way. She was definitely performing that role, but I understood her struggle a bit. And there was that moment where Henry comes out from behind the car and she looks at him and there's this sort of look of like, Jesus, like, what's happened?
Why have we come to this point?
Yeah. It's not that I identified with her, but I understood her motivations and everything she was doing. And yeah, even Kathleen, who typical TV show villain, I kind of cared about a little bit.
I mean, you're right, man, because ultimately we're talking about the same sort of situation where, for her, even though she's a leader of this resistance group, her brother was clearly her reason for living, a great driver for her, and he was killed. We've seen what happened to Bill and Henry when the closest person to them was killed. So why shouldn't Kathleen react in equally an extreme way, but through life? Instead of killing herself, I'm going to kill the person who did that to him. It's quite a reasonable reaction on paper.
It's an extreme one, but yeah.
It is an extreme one, yeah.
But yeah, I think we've pretty much covered everything. There's obviously that very somber moment where Ellie puts Sam's, I don't even know what you call it, etcher-sketcher?
Yeah, it's like a paper etcher-sketch. I've never seen one.
I've never seen one either.
They're cool things.
Yeah, the little lift up. But she puts it on and just says, I'm sorry. And I think she then walks off and says, come on, let's go, to Joel. Just beautiful, quiet moment after all of that chaos. And it's like the journey continues.
The journey continues. And I'm glad that they buried their dead.
Yeah.
It wasn't a case of bullets in their heads, on we go.
Yeah.
It's like, give them that respect.
Yeah.
It's like the humanity is still there.
Exactly. I always remember, I think it's in a Terminator film. They're like, the difference between us and them is we bury our dead.
What is that from?
I think it's Terminator.
Is it Terminator?
Salvation or something. The one with the Russian guy who died, unfortunately.
Oh, Anton Yelchin.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. That is what it's from.
I don't know why. I always remember that, but I always bring that up. It's like, the difference between us and them is we bury our dead.
That's a good line, man.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we should leave it there. Overall, so you think this is your favourite episode so far?
I don't know.
Okay.
Because that Bill and Frank episode was so unexpectedly beautiful. Yeah. I think it's too reactive at this point to say. I would say at the moment it's on the level. It's on the level. It's a 10, and I'll know by the end of the season if it is or not.
Okay, yeah, I think.
What about you?
I think Bill and Frank is still my favourite, just because it was unexpected. Maybe for me, it's because I knew nothing of that. It was completely changed,
completely new for you, yes,
which was lovely. It was a brilliant episode. This one was brilliant in a different way. So tense, so edge of your seat. I don't think I've audibly made noises at all during the show, but here I was just like shouting, screaming, laughing.
I think you probably got a really unique experience of it, and anyone who played the game did, where you knew the tragic ending that was coming for these guys, and you had to endure the episode knowing that was coming.
Yeah, well, it's funny because there are all these sort of moments, and because you know where it's going to end up, you can see the tragedy, like foreshadowing almost. Yeah, it was great. I'd probably give it a 9. But like a high 9, if that's even a thing. But yeah, I loved it. And yeah, I don't know where it's going next week, but I guess we'll have to see.
Well, I'm excited then.
Me too.
The fact that you don't know where it's going means it could go anywhere now. What have we got? 4 episodes left, is it?
I think it's 9 in total. So
I can't wait. I'm all the way in, mate. I'm all the way in.
Let's do it. All right, well, we'll catch you guys next week, and we'll see you then.
See you then.
So all the information for the giveaway is on screen now. It's really simple, guys. All you have to do is follow 3 accounts on Instagram. That's Francis Films YT, Filmbusters Ben, and Filmbusters Pod. So that's my account, Ben's account, and then the Filmbusters podcast account, which is the podcast Ben is on and that I've been a guest on a few times. They're good guys, so they deserve it. And then all you have to do is subscribe to Francis Films on YouTube, and that, of course, is where you are right now. So it's quite easy to just go and subscribe. And for all of this, you can win The Last of Us Part 1 remastered on PS5 and a PlayStation Store gift card, so it's quite a good prize, guys. I will announce the winner after the season finale. Good luck, everyone, and again, thanks for watching so much. I'll catch you next time.